I just did a podcast about a month ago with the guy by the name of Mike Rinder. He was a top executive in Scientology, and we talked a lot about your son, David.
Danny, let me just interrupt you for a second. I know Mike Rinder since he was 15 years old.
Have you really?
That's how old of friends we are. Because I had my family at St. Hill, England, and his dad and mom brought him and his brother, I guess, to St. Hill. And I met him when he was 15 years old. We have a very long and enduring friendship. And I love him as a person. He had a hell of a job with the church where he had to do things that, of course, he regrets now. But when you're with that cult, you do things that later on you look back and say, God damn it, man, I was really, my mind had been sucked in by somebody and changed into something I didn't want to be. And, but Mike's just a wonderful person. I got to say that.
What a wild story that
Yeah.
was. The story that he told me, and just the impact that Scientology has made on this world. The documentaries that have been made, the people's lives it's affected. Your son has made a huge impact on this world and on lots of people's lives.
Yeah, I know. And it's not necessarily a favorable one if you get my drift. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can you give me sort of just like a brief background on who you are, where you and your family came from, and how you guys got into this world of Scientology?
Yeah. And basically, I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, in a little coal mining town called Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania. It's up in the northeast part of the state. And it was a wonderful little town to grow up in. It was 1 mile square, exactly. Streets were laid out in checkerboard fashion, easy to get around. If you knew you were going to a certain place, you knew the named streets were running a certain way and the avenues run another way. But the delightful thing about growing up there is this. You had immigrants from Italy, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Ireland, Germany, just about every country in Europe. So this town was like a little Europe. And you had this gathering of people of different cultures. And because of that, I think we learned how to tolerate each other. Do you see what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
every like a person coming from a certain country, they have certain idiosyncrasies or certain moral codes and stuff. But living with all these different types of people and different religions, as an example, the Russians who were there went to a Greek Orthodox church, whereas the Italians, the Polish, and most of the people went to the Roman Catholic Church. A little bit different ceremony, but sometimes we'd go to each other's church to see what it was like. It was a lot of tolerance of a lot of things. And one of the best things about growing up there was when they had block parties. You know what a block party is, right?
Yeah.
People come there and they bring their favorite food and stuff. You would
Right.
have delicacies from all these different ethnic groups, and it was just out of this world. The town, you could have all the fun you wanted to have, and you could stretch the law as long as you didn't break it. Okay? That's the type of raising I had. It was very laissez-faire, I'll be honest with you. And even then, I can remember going up into the attic of our house, and we had a 3-story house. And that last floor, we kept winter clothes, and there was a library shelf there. And on that shelf was all these different books that my dad had gotten. And I used to go up there, even as a little kid, and pull books off the shelf. And I was always searching for something. I didn't know what I was searching for, but I was looking maybe for answers. I can remember pulling off a book called The Prophet by Gibran. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, it's a philosophical book that this guy wrote. And even at my young age, I got something out of it. Not a hell of a lot because I couldn't understand some of the words. But that search carried with me. It carried with me throughout my life. And when I was a young man, I got out of high school, and well, of course, I was a musician. I learned how to play a trumpet when I was 11 years old, and I was playing in bars for money when I was 13 years old. And I remember that in those days, we played a 5-hour job. We got $2 an hour, so that was $10 for 5 hours of music. And in those days, you can go to J.C. Penney's and buy a pair of jeans for $1.50. So as a kid, it was good money for me. You know what I mean? And I got out of high school, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was playing some gigs, and I finally met a Marine Corps recruiter right on the main street in my town. And after talking to him for about a half an hour, I decided I wanted to be a United States Marine. Well, I was only 17 years old, so my dad had to sign for me. So I can remember taking a recruiter up to my dad's insurance office. He had an insurance business. And we asked him to sign. He said, Ronnie, are you sure you want to do this? They're the first ones in. I said, yeah, Pop, I want to be a United States Marine. So I joined, and I'm not going to make this long story long because it's quite extensive. But I can remember going to Parris Island, South Carolina, where they had the boot camp. And the first night there was like a living nightmare. I thought to myself, this is the worst goddamn mistake I've ever made in my life. Did you ever see the movie Full Metal Jacket?
Of course.
That is how boot camp is. That is not an exaggeration. Well, several months later, I'm graduating boot camp, and I thought to myself, I can make myself do anything. They turned me from an undisciplined civilian who had a hard time getting up in the morning into somebody who could discipline himself into doing anything he wanted to in life. And I'm going to tell you, that has helped me my entire life. And it probably in some way impelled me toward being able to join Scientology and stick it out as long as I did. I know that seemed like a little bit of a lengthy story, but that's what I was leading up to. Are you tracking with me so far?
Yes, I am. I'm following you.
Okay, now, how did we get in Scientology? Well, I was working with a friend of mine his name was Nelson Sandy. He was a singer, and of course I played trumpet, but at that point we had a job selling. Nelson Sandy was the guy that said to me back in the 60s, I used to be a doctor, but I lost my patience. It's still funny, all right? We come off the stage one time, we're playing a gig in Greenwood Lakes, New York, and we went over to the bar, and a guy came over and said, Nelson, you're a great singer. Can I buy you a drink? He said, no, but can I have the money? He was really fast on the uptake with a lot of shit like that, okay? So now Nelson said to me one day, how would you like to make an extra $100,000 this year? And I said, hey, that's a great idea. What the hell are you talking about? He introduced me to a pyramid marketing scheme called Holiday Magic.
Mm.
Okay, I don't know if you ever heard that word before. Have you?
Multi-level pyramid scheme.
Yeah, well, Amway is that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
That's one of
I
them.
know what it is. Multi-level marketing is another word for it.
Yeah, exactly. So now I got involved in it. Make a long story short, I got involved and I purchased products and I became a master distributor. And we used to have opportunity events where we would take people into a motel room and have a chalkboard up and tell them how this works and recruit people to do it. And that was the business.
Teach people how they can get rich.
Exactly, which actually is a bullshit story because the people who get rich are the people that started it.
Right.
Everybody else is bottom feeders. They're on top and they're making they're scraping the good stuff right at the top. So we're at this opportunity meeting and I am standing next to a girl who we're teamed up with. There's Nelson and myself and a girl, Kathy, and Jim Hearn was another guy. We became a part of a team, kind of a marketing team. She's talking to somebody, and I'm talking to another person. And this guy said to her, I'm a Scientologist. I said to the guy I was talking to, excuse me, I said, what is that? For whatever reason, the name rang a bell. Don't know why, but it rang a bell.
But you had never heard it before.
Nope. So I pinned him down for about a half an hour, and he told me all these things, and I was sucking it in like a sponge that you throw in the water, just sucking the water in. I'm thinking, what the hell is this, man? This sounds incredible to me. And he he said, you can become more able. I says, well, I'm pretty able now. He says, well, do you think you could become more able? I said, yeah, everybody can become more able. He says, well, then to that degree, you're unable. Very tricky. That's very clever. So I thought, well, he's right. So I said, well, how do you mean? He said, well, there's things you can do, like you never have to take another aspirin as long as you live. I said, what the hell are you talking about? So he gave me this little thing to do when you have a headache, and it'll go away. I said, well, I don't have a headache right now, so I can't even try it out. But it intrigued me, I'll be honest with you. So now, maybe a week later, I'm driving down Route 130 in New Jersey. I raised my family in South Jersey, right across from Philadelphia, basically. I'm driving down Route 130, and I realize I have a headache. And he told me what to do. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to try this out. I tried it out. My headache went away. I says, hey, I got to try this. Now, I started going to a place in Woodbury, New Jersey, where there's a guy by the name of Frank Ogle. He had a group, and he
Wait,
used to.
did
I'm
it
sorry.
work? Did it work when you had the headache?
It went away. It went away immediately, and it just blew me away. I thought, hey, wait a minute.
Wow, what was it? What specifically was it that he told you to do?
Well, I guess I should tell you, but I can tell you this: if it works, it'll work sometimes.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
in other words, this may seem so stupid. You're going to say, "Are you joking?" Here's what it is. He said, if you have a headache, go and look at yourself in a mirror and give the headache to the person in the mirror. And he said, I says, well, what if there's no mirror? He's okay. Well, maybe if you're out someplace and there's no mirror, get a mental image picture of yourself looking at a person in a mirror, at yourself in a mirror, and give your headache to the person in the mirror in the mental image picture.
Whoa.
That's what I did when I was driving my car, and I am telling you, and I'm telling you, this is not a piece for Scientology by any means, but this actually happened. I did that, and immediately, 1 second later, my headache was gone. Okay,
Dang.
I know it's when that happened. I thought, wait a minute, I got to check this out. I,
That seems like a great thing to know. I think it seems like a great tool to use.
well, I don't ever get headaches anymore, and I stopped getting headaches, I guess, in around that time. So I've never had another chance to take it because I just don't ever get headaches. Now,
Right.
well, it could be I exercise almost every day of the month. Maybe I'll take 2 or 3 days off.
I wonder if that would
I
work for with other kinds of aches.
I don't know, but yeah, you might try it. But there's a whole theory behind it, and I really don't want to go into it because it'll get into the realm of wait a minute, what is this guy talking about? And it's just
Yeah.
rather
Sorry.
than get into it, I can tell you that was the simplicity of what I did, and that
Okay.
worked. But that impelled me to go. There's a purpose now for telling you that because that then got me to go to this place that Frank Ogle was having in his cafeteria in Woodbury, New Jersey. It was either on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, and he'd get a whole bunch of people there, and he would say, "Now, tell me what you think about such and such, or what do you think about this?" And people would originate their answers, and then he'd tell you how you shouldn't think that way. That's not what Scientology is these days. But he would also do miniature courses like in communication. So I went there, I think, for about a month straight on like that's 4 Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And at the end of that, I figured, all right, well, I got the idea of it. And the whole idea of it is to try to be at cause in life instead of effect. And it improved my communication somewhat. So that was my first taste with Scientology.